The college football playoff rankings.
Welcome back.
The second edition have officially arrived.
Bang!
We are going to recap everything right now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just want to read off the rankings. I think we have them up right now on the edit, so you can go ahead and look at those, look at the bracket, what
Let's
it
do
would
bottom
be like.
to top.
Bottom to top.
Bottom to top.
All right.
I
just like how you like it. 25, Tulane. They sneak in the rankings from being not ranked last week.
Green
Shout out
Wave.
Tulane. Shout out the Green Wave. They're playing Navy this week. I love Navy.
Kind of a big game for them.
Yeah, Tulane, you're getting kicked out of the rankings, but you're at 25. Undefeated Army at 24. They only move up one spot.
So disrespectful. It's unbelievable.
Criminal. I mean, there's only what? I think three other undefeated teams, and they're all inside the top 7. So
No, Army we'll get into it later, but I think that eliminates all of their chances.
Army?
I think, I in my opinion.
Well, just tell me now.
So I think their only big game coming up is against Notre Dame, which is massive. But I think
pretty high. We'll talk
which
about
is
that.
ranked really high. I think they're in the top.
They're 8.
Yeah, number 8. And so I don't think the way that the college football playoff ranking system has been judging losses, I don't see a way in which Notre Dame drops enough to where, they're switching, right? So I don't see a world where Notre Dame moves to 24.
They don't need to.
Army goes up to 8 or
They don't
whatever.
need to.
So
Notre Dame
you would say Notre Dame would go out
to-
into like 15. Army goes into like 12.
Yeah, at the end of the season. I mean, if they stay undefeated and beat a top 10 team, I think it'd be almost impossible to keep them out at the end of the year, especially when a lot of these teams we're about to talk about have 2 losses and will probably end with 3 because a lot of them play each other.
Or they just say that, not being in one of those main conferences just means that you're shit, and they end up giving the extra team to the Big Ten or SEC.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll definitely talk about a lot of these teams that are real close on there. Missouri is 23, LSU 22. Both of those teams pretty much eliminated from the playoffs.
Unless they won the SEC.
It'd be tough for either of them to get in the championship right now. South Carolina at 21. It's kind of like, a good job, South Carolina. You beat a couple good teams, but they're out as well.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson, we're at 20. Only shot we have to get in is not off an at-large bid. We need Miami or SMU to lose a game and then somehow sneak in the ACC championship and be a 2-loss team that wins their conference.
Yep.
A lot of work ahead of us. We need to get lucky too. Louisville 19, the team that beat us. Washington State 18.
Wazoo!
Colorado 17. Colorado, we've talked about them quite a bit. They are very much in control of their own destiny.
Yep, if they win out, it doesn't matter what they're ranked.
They win
Who
their next
cares?
couple games. They're in their championship. They play BYU in the championship. If they beat BYU, they're in. If BYU wins, they're in. We'll talk about, when we get to BYU's ranking, what that means for BYU if they lose to Colorado. There's a shot they might get in too. Kansas State 16, A&M 15, SMU 14. SMU's second highest ACC team. They also control their own destiny. They went out, they're in.
Yep.
Boise State 13, highest ranked non-Power 4 team.
Puts them in the bracket.
Yeah, they'll be at that 12 spot if they end up, winning out, which it looks like they will. They don't have a very hard schedule. Georgia at 12, but
First
as the
team
bracket's
out.
currently constructed, they're the first team out because Boise State would have to be in. Georgia, we kind of talked about it in yesterday's episodes, but they play Tennessee this week.
They're going to swap.
If they beat Tennessee, they're in. They might go to the SEC championship. Tennessee beats Georgia, they're in, and they might go to the SEC championship. So it's basically a playoff game.
I think they're almost guaranteed to go to the SEC championship.
If they win.
Yeah, if they win,
Yeah.
they're pretty much guaranteed.
Yep, 100%. After Georgia, we have Ole Miss at 11. Big jump, 5 spots from 16. Obviously, they beat Georgia,
Yeah.
so they moved Ole Miss just ahead of Georgia.
Makes sense
Ole Miss, who do they play this week? They have a big game? No, they don't have a big game this week. No, they have an easy rest of the schedule.
Yeah.
They play Florida and Mississippi State or something.
Yeah.
So Ole Miss, it looks like they're positioning themselves to be in the playoffs as an at-large.
In contention.
That's what it seems like they're going to be there. Bama at 10, they also seem like a team that's going to be there.
Makes sense.
Bama and Ole Miss, I think they definitely deserve to be in the playoffs. They're 2 of the best couple programs in college football. They're definitely a lot better than some of the teams I think ranked above them, but due to the records, obviously you can't put 2-loss teams that high. Breaking into the top 10, Miami at 9. So this is one I am shocked they kept him in the top 10 because the AP poll had Miami at 12. And yesterday when we were talking about it, we were talking about, Miami, if they're at 12 already, there's no way with another loss that they get in. But if somehow when they play SMU, Miami's like 8, and SMU's like
They'll
11.
drop 1 or 2, and then they stay in there based off safety.
This opens the door a little bit for Miami to be a 2-loss team that somehow gets in, depending on what happens with these SEC teams, like Georgia and Tennessee. Obviously, matching up, and then you have the Texas and A&M thing.
Yeah,
so it kind of bumps the losers of those games out. Next team, Notre Dame 8. Like we said, they're pretty much in unless they lose. If they just win out, they don't have an easy schedule necessarily. I think they go Virginia, Army, and USC. So they should win all those games. But I think if Army beats them, it might get interesting at the end.
It gets real dicey.
An undefeated team with a top 10 win, I think, deserves to get in, regardless of the credentials.
Yeah.
I feel like, sure, they didn't play hard conference games, but if they haven't lost and they're beating teams you're putting at 8, give them a shot.
I mean, that's kind of the beauty of having the 12-team bracket, which we never got before, is that
those type of teams should be in
exactly,
there.
Exactly. You get to put them at 12. They'll 99.99% of the time get their ass beat by any other actual
if they're beating Notre Dame.
Real contender. No, Notre Dame's not a real contender. Let's be serious.
Who knows?
Okay.
I mean, most people do know.
They lost to freaking NIU. That's
a tough game. Real tough game. Tennessee at 7. It gets interesting for Tennessee if they lose this week.
It's a flip. They literally just flip-flop.
I think if they lose, they're going to be out regardless.
Ooh.
Even though they beat Bama. They haven't had a necessarily difficult SEC schedule. Their only ranked win is Alabama. Obviously, if they win, they're going to stay, in the top 7.
But then playing Bama above them and then letting Bama go in is interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. But I think Bama has
that goes into Ryan's logic.
But Bama has multiple better wins. Bama's beaten ranked teams and beat Georgia. I feel like it'll be. That's one thing we can kind of wait to talk about. It's a lot of hypotheticals right now. But yeah, if Tennessee does lose and you have Bama and Tennessee as both 2-loss SEC teams and they played each other and Tennessee won, do they stay above Bama and then just keep Ole Miss below all of them? And then you have Texas and Georgia up there and there's 3 SEC teams stacked out, Ole Miss gets kicked out? Or do you just say, hey, Tennessee hasn't really beat anyone besides one team. That was an off week for Bama, move Tennessee below all of them and they're left out. Because I don't think you see 5 SEC teams in. The way this is shaping up, especially with the strength of the Big Ten, which we're about to get into, I think you only see 4 SEC teams. Number 6, BYU, 9-0 BYU. Unbelievable season so far.
You
love the Mormons.
I do love
the Mormons and BYU.
Shout out Joseph Smith Jr.
Yeah, you learned that a couple weeks ago on the podcast. Yeah. BYU, it gets interesting. I saw a comment on one of our videos yesterday that said they were interested to hear what we thought about BYU. If they go undefeated walking into the Big 12 championship and then lose to Colorado, obviously that means Colorado gets the first round bye. But does BYU as, a 1-loss team in the conference championship still get into the playoffs?
Well, look at where they're ranked, right? And so again, I have to use what I've seen, which is 1 week previous, but my logic goes back to they're giving a big cushion to significant games. They lose in a conference championship against a team that they're only seeing climb the rankings in Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you going to count them out so much? This is a team that's very deserving. Colorado will get the bye because of it. But again, if they're that big of a powerhouse team, then you shouldn't count them out that bad.
Yeah, it'll be really, really, really interesting because I actually think they don't get in the playoffs if they lose to Colorado. I can't see Colorado getting much higher than 14 or 15 pre-conference championship. So maybe they do, maybe they don't. I think it'll be around there. But if their loss is to a 14 or 15 team, it'll just be. I think a lot actually depends on how they play in that game. If it's a really close game down to the last, or if they get blown out, they maybe don't get in. But I think they're deserving of it. But it's just really hard. You have all these SEC teams, and they clearly value them high.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Georgia, Ole Miss, Bama, 12, 11, 10. And then you have Tennessee 7, and then we're about to get into it, but Texas is 3. And not only that, but at the back of the rankings, they snuck in, Missouri, LSU, and South Carolina, 23, 22, 21. So you damn near have every game now for these SEC teams
against ranked opponent.
Game. Yeah, and so that looks really, really strong. Next, the second, highest undefeated team, Indiana, moves up big. Both them and BYU jump 3 spots. They're at 5, 10-0.
Playing Alabama in the bracket.
Yeah, they play Ohio State. I don't think they beat Ohio State.
Nope.
But if they lose to Ohio State, I don't think it matters.
It's
I think
a cushion.
they're essentially locked in along with the team above them in Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
They both can be undefeated besides losing to Ohio State and both be in based on how high they're ranked.
Yeah, explain to me why Penn State is above Indiana, though.
Makes no sense.
Well, so
Makes no sense.
again, you could even argue like both of those teams have a like opponent in Ohio State. Let's assume Indiana loses. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, it's the exact same score, right?
Okay.
They kind of lose by 2 touchdowns or whatever. And in that case, the other teams that they've played for both sides, Penn State and Indiana, haven't really been the most insane opponents.
Well, neither have
And
beaten-
I think Indiana has a better resume against those not anything
Do they?
opponents. In my opinion, I mean, they scored over 40 plus points a game every single week. They were consistently
last
one of the not last week, but that's the one exception, right? And I got my ass handed to me in my mortal, but that's different topic.
I don't know. Neither team has beaten a ranked opponent. So that's a currently ranked opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really interesting thing. And this is kind of when we talk about the SEC, when, Ryan, who's not here right now, but he always talks about the SEC is not good anymore because
Mm-hmm.
these teams have losses. And my argument's like, look, Indiana beat FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay, if you put any of those SEC teams that are ranked with this schedule, they are also 10-0.
Yeah.
They just are.
I completely agree. Arkansas, Vanderbilt.
Their only ranked opponent will
yeah.
be Ohio State. Same with Penn State. They both play no ranked teams. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Illinois was ranked when Penn State beat them by 14, but they're no longer ranked. We saw what Illinois is. So, yeah, it's kind of funny having these teams held so high without any good wins. And Penn State makes no sense to me. They don't have a ranked win. They lost their only ranked game. There's no way in the world I can hear a rationale for them to be above Indiana or BYU, given that they're undefeated and they have a loss. Even Tennessee, I could see arguments for freaking Alabama above them too.
Well, I think the argument would be that Indiana's had an extra bye, right? And so they have
Indiana's played an extra game.
Oh,
Yeah,
did they have an extra win over Penn State? So one
they're
of them
10-0.
Oh wow, and then Penn State is 9-1. Oh wow.
Yeah. And then so to round out the top
crazy.
three,
That's crazy.
Texas moved up, which is kind of surprising. Texas at 3.
Hook 'em horns.
Yeah, you guys control your own destiny too.
Yep.
Just got to be A&M. Ohio State at 2 and Oregon at 1. No change at the 1 and 2. So we kind of just ran through all that. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to talk about? Or
no, but I do just want to say that if this were to be the actual playoff bracket, I freaking love the way that looks. I mean, I think we have a great chance against Indiana or
we being Texas.
And then, if we could beat either Indiana, we have Alabama's number. We could definitely beat those bum masses. And then, the Mormons. I mean, the Mormons haven't played an actual team. This is
What
my
do you mean
dream.
they haven't played an actual team? What are you talking about?
Come on. Bring them to a Southeast Conference.
I mean, they beat SMU, who's ranked 14, and they beat Kansas State, who's also...
Put SMU against Vandy, it's a close game.
No, it's not.
It is.
No, you don't know what you're talking about. BYU,
hey, I mean, agree or
BYU
disagree.
has a much more impressive schedule than than Indiana. So I don't even understand how Indiana's ahead of them to begin with. BYU is one of the most impressive teams.
Strength of conference.
Strength of conference, but
Big Ten is harder than...
Who cares about strength of conference when you've played the games? They have harder strength of schedule. They've played better.
But strength of schedule is relative to your conference play, right? So if you're playing...
No.
Yes, it is.
What do you mean? BYU played an out-of-conference SMU that's ranked in the top 15.
Okay, but besides that, the rest of their schedule is based off the strength of their opponents that are in conference because that's a majority of their calendar.
Sure, but I mean,
right?
their in-conference opponent that they beat is Kansas State, who's ranked 16. What's an in-conference opponent ranked 16 or above, or even near that, that's Penn State's beat? No one. They haven't played anyone. So, just because you have an Oregon and an Ohio State and a Penn State in your conference or whatever, that doesn't mean Indiana, without playing them, should get credit for having them in the... That makes no sense to me.
It's like saying the Nebraskas are better. So the average team in the Big Ten is going to be better than the average team.
It's about the games you play.
I guess that's true.
Yeah,
I guess that's
nothing.
true.
Also, Nebraska's ass.
Oh,
Indiana
Nebraska
beat them
whooped up on
56-7.
Colorado.
Yeah, early in the season though.
Hey,
Colorado
they still
since
whooped
then
up
looked
on
really
them.
good. Yeah, I mean nothing really too surprising for me. I'm really upset about Penn State's ranking. I said it last week.
Yeah.
That's the one ranking that makes no sense. You know, Indiana and BYU flip flop. Who cares? Indiana's going to lose to Ohio State. If they don't, then it gets a little interesting. But BYU, you know, they both control their own destiny. So nothing really crazy there. I just don't like that Penn State's ahead of them. And Miami at 9 is the other thing that just jumped out to me, because I think there's a world if you see a Tennessee loss, Tennessee drops out of the top couple. You know, BYU, if they lose to Colorado, and then, you know, if Indiana loses as well, I think there's room for Miami to stay up there.
So Miami's going to win out, right?
I hope not. For
But I mean,
Clemson's
like,
sake.
they're probably going to win out.
They go into Syracuse the last week. That's a hard place to play. I'm really banking on, you know,
Yeah, I
McCord.
mean, McCord has
McCord.
seen his rust
I need him
recently.
big. But, yeah, I mean, the rest of the ranking's pretty chalk. Nothing real surprising. Yeah, I do think there's still a shot for Army at 24, but I can't believe they kept him down there. I can't believe they...
I think it's so criminal. I think that's terrible.
Yeah, I don't know how you have an undefeated team, but they do get to play Notre Dame. So
True.
Hopefully,
They could prove themselves.
you know, the committee will kind of fix what they got broken here. But yeah, there you have it. Let us know in the comments what you think about these rankings. The second week of them, we have 4 more, three more regular ones, and then the last one is, you know, the official college football playoff ranking.
Oh, yeah.
So stay locked in with us. We're pretty much dropping videos every single day for the most part until
Every Wednesday
in
until it
perpetuity,
happens.
as long as football exists. So drop a follow, drop a subscribe, share it with a friend, and let us know what you think about the video. Enjoy your week.
Bang.